Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're unpacking a trend you've undoubtedly encountered, probably scrolled past 100 times. It's the art of romanticizing your life. You see those beautiful curated moments everywhere online, the perfect cup of tea maybe, or the quiet journaling bathed in that soft fairy-like glow.
Yeah, the whole aesthetic.
Exactly. It's this pervasive visual language, a kind of quiet hum of self-care rituals and, well, perfectly styled moments that just whisper, this is my best life.
Right.
You've likely double-tapped on a few of these yourself. Maybe even found yourself wishing for, a bit more of that serene magic in your own daily grind.
I think most of us have felt that pull, yeah.
But what if this whole aesthetic is actually tapping into something maybe far more profound than just a pretty picture?
Interesting.
What if romanticizing your life isn't merely a fleeting trend like so many things online,
Yeah.
but maybe a deeper phenomenon with surprising origins and some pretty profound psychological underpinnings? That's precisely what we're here to explore today. We've gathered insights from various perspectives, everything from its digital roots on TikTok and Instagram to its psychological foundations to really try and understand this modern movement.
Yeah.
So our mission with this deep dive isn't just to talk about what romanticizing your life looks like on your phone screen.
Right, the surface level.
Exactly. We're here to understand what it actually means for your well-being, where it genuinely came from, and maybe most importantly, how you can engage with it authentically, without falling into some very common, very easy traps.
Yeah, the pitfalls.
We're going to explore some surprising facts and practical applications that honestly just might change how you view your daily routines, maybe forever.
Sounds great. Let's dig in.
Okay, so let's begin by really painting a picture of what this phenomenon looks like, especially in its most, well, visible form online.
Right, the tropes.
Yeah, think about those viral reels and TikToks that have probably graced your feed. You've got the soft ambient music playing,
Always the music.
always the music. And someone's gracefully pouring tea, maybe sunlight is streaming through a window, perfectly illuminating the steam rising from the mug.
The golden hour shot.
Totally. Or maybe it's someone journaling in a cozy nook, surrounded by the warm glow of fairy lights, their thoughts spilling onto these crisp, perfect pages.
Looks so peaceful.
It does. Or it could be just a quiet afternoon, curled up with a well-loved book in a comfy armchair. Maybe the gentle rhythm of rain falling outside, creating this perfect, almost like cinematic backdrop.
Yeah, very movie-like.
What we're witnessing here, I think, is this deliberate, intentional act of transforming simple, often mundane, everyday moments into beautiful, intentional experiences.
Right, elevating the ordinary.
Yeah, it's an almost artistic approach to daily living, making the mundane feel, noteworthy.
And that visual language you've just described, it really perfectly encapsulates the core idea behind romanticizing your life. It's fundamentally about acting as if you are the main character of your own narrative.
The main character.
Yeah, and this isn't about passively waiting around for grand, life-altering events, like a major promotion or that dream vacation or finding the one to feel significant or worthwhile.
Right, not pinning your happiness on the big milestones.
Exactly. Instead, it represents a conscious, proactive effort to imbue the small, often repetitive things in your day-to-day existence with a sense of substance, meaning, and even, like you said, a touch of magic.
So taking control of how you experience things.
Precisely. It's about taking agency over your internal experience, kind of regardless of what's happening externally. This perspective shift is truly key because it fundamentally reframes our interaction with the everyday.
How so?
Well, it encourages us to seek and create beauty, purpose, and maybe even a quiet thrill right where we are in the here and now, rather than constantly striving for some future idealized state that might never arrive.
Finding the extraordinary within the ordinary.
That's a perfect way to put it. What's fascinating here is how it shifts the locus of control for our happiness. It moves it away from external forces and puts it firmly onto our internal lens, how we choose to see things.
That idea of being the main character is really captivating. But I wonder, doesn't it carry a risk? Like a risk of making us a bit self-centered, maybe? Or, ignoring the larger world. How do you balance that with genuine engagement and, well, responsibility?
That's a really crucial tension to acknowledge, absolutely. And I think authentic romanticism, done right, isn't about isolating oneself or becoming self-obsessed in a way that disconnects you from other people or your responsibilities.
Okay.
Instead, it's more about cultivating an internal sense of worth and joy that then allows you to engage with the world more fully, more resiliently.
So it's like building a foundation first.
Exactly. When you're grounded in your own sense of contentment, maybe found in those small moments, you're often better equipped to face external challenges, to show up for others, and to contribute meaningfully. It's less about a superficial self-focus, like look at me, and more about building a strong, appreciative foundation for your own lived experience. And from that foundation, you can then interact with the broader world with more, maybe, equanimity and presence.
So it's not navel-gazing, it's inner resourcing.
That's a good way to think about it. Bringing conscious intention to your personal experience as a foundation for a richer overall life, one that includes connection and contribution.
And when we look at the origin story of this trend, it becomes even more compelling, I think. Because it didn't just pop up out of nowhere, did it?
No, not at all.
It truly exploded in popularity right after the COVID lockdowns hit. Remember those times?
Oh, vividly.
So many of us were suddenly confined to our homes, our usual routines completely upended. Life, for many, felt incredibly repetitive, often boring, and for far too many, genuinely scary.
Yeah, a lot of uncertainty and fear.
The external world was chaotic and unpredictable, and our personal spaces, our living rooms and kitchens, they suddenly became our entire universe, often for months on end.
And to fully grasp the why behind this explosion, we really need to recall the profound psychological landscape of those lockdowns. Suddenly, the external world, with its usual distractions, its grand plans, its social connections, it was largely cut off.
Right, everything just stopped.
People were confined, not just physically in their homes, but often mentally stuck in these repetitive routines. And this wasn't just boring, like you said. For many, it induced this profound sense of powerlessness, loneliness, and even a kind of existential anxiety.
Yeah, what's the point?
Feelings, exactly. Grand plans felt futile, external validation was suddenly scarce, and the usual avenues for joy or self-worth were simply unavailable for a lot of people.
Yeah.
In that environment, people instinctively turned inwards, seeking control and meaning wherever they could possibly find it.
Within their own four walls, basically.
Within their own four walls and within their own minds. And this is where Gen Z, who are already native to platforms like TikTok, where visual storytelling thrives.
Right, they grew up with it.
They became pioneers in this. They began transforming these very constraints, this confinement, into creative outlets. A simple morning coffee wasn't just coffee anymore. It became an elaborate ritual, maybe filmed beautifully.
Making the coffee became the event.
It became the event. A single houseplant wasn't just decor. It became a living companion, something to nurture, a source of visible growth and care when everything else felt stagnant.
I definitely got into plant stuff.
A lot of people did. Listening to music wasn't just background noise. It became an intentional sonic escape, maybe digging out old vinyl records. These weren't just fleeting vibes,
No, it felt more substantial.
They were tangible anchors, little acts of defiance, almost, against the overwhelming chaos outside. They provided a sense of agency, a tiny pocket of control, beauty, and purpose when the world felt overwhelmingly out of control.
A self-preservation strategy, almost.
I think that's exactly what it was, a way to prove to oneself that even in really bleak circumstances, joy and meaning could still be cultivated, could be found. And this raises an important question, I think. How did this seemingly simple practice become such a vital psychological anchor during such unprecedented times?
Yeah.
It really speaks to a deep human need for agency and meaning, even in the smallest of acts, especially when larger systems feel completely beyond our influence.
It's incredible how something so on the surface, superficial, like an aesthetic trend, can emerge from such deep-seated psychological needs. So, okay, is this just about good vibes then?
Yeah.
Or is there actual science behind why romanticizing your life truly works?
Oh, this isn't just about good vibes at all. There's actually substantial psychological backing to it. The science, perhaps surprisingly to some, fully supports the effectiveness of this trend.
Really? How so?
Well, according to the field of positive psychology, which, focuses on human flourishing and well-being, the conscious act of appreciating small, everyday things has measurable and profound benefits for our well-being. It directly helps to cultivate and improve gratitude.
Okay, gratitude. Makes sense.
Which is a powerful driver of happiness and satisfaction. So when you actively notice and appreciate the small comforts like the warmth of your coffee mug or the softness of a blanket, maybe the sound of birds outside your window, your brain is stimulated to feel more grateful, and that shifts your overall emotional state.
So you're training your brain to see the good.
In a way, yes. And beyond gratitude, this practice actually stimulates the release of dopamine.
Ah, the reward chemical.
Exactly, the brain's primary reward chemical. And dopamine isn't just about fleeting pleasure, it's a feel-good chemical that also reinforces behaviors. So the more you engage in these mindful, appreciative moments, the more your brain essentially says, yes, do more of that.
Creating a positive feedback loop.
Precisely. It encourages you to seek out and create more such moments. It also significantly enhances mindfulness, pulling our attention firmly to the present moment rather than letting our minds, ruminate on the past or worry excessively about the future.
Which we all do too much of.
Absolutely. And critically, studies have shown it helps reduce anxiety. It does this by shifting our focus away from potential threats or overwhelming global events, things we can't control, and towards immediate, positive sensory experiences that are within our control.
Interesting. So it's practical anxiety reduction.
It can be, yes.
Yeah.
Let's delve a bit into how the brain responds to this. Our brains are constantly seeking patterns and meaning, right? When we engage in intentional living, even in seemingly small ways, like preparing that beautiful cup of tea with purpose or consciously noticing the intricate patterns of sunlight on the floor, the brain interprets these actions as purposeful behavior.
Okay, it registers it as meaningful.
Exactly. This isn't just a casual observation. It's a neurological signal that something meaningful is occurring. And this perceived purposefulness directly correlates with a measurable increase in overall life satisfaction.
Wow. So it's not just a feeling, it's actually changing something.
It's a tangible neurological repatterning, reinforcing the value of these micro moments. Our brains are essentially wired to thrive on purpose, and romanticizing life, when done authentically, provides a constant, accessible source of it. It's like creating a powerful internal narrative for ourselves moment by moment.
That's incredibly insightful. So the brain is actively seeking purpose in these small moments, almost rewarding us for finding it.
Yeah.
Is there a specific psychological term for this kind of deliberate, mindful enjoyment of the present?
Absolutely. What you're touching on there is formally known in psychology as savoring.
Savoring, okay.
Yeah, savoring. It's defined as the act of consciously and mindfully enjoying the present moment, deliberately extending and enhancing positive experiences.
Extending them.
It's about fully immersing yourself in a moment, noticing all the sensory details, the sight, the sound, the smell, the taste, the feel, allowing yourself to fully feel the joy or the peace or the contentment it brings, rather than just letting it pass by unnoticed. It involves a conscious effort to sort of linger on and intensify those positive emotions.
So if we put that together then, romanticizing your life is essentially a practical, maybe more accessible, everyday application of savoring.
That's a great way to frame it, yes.
It's taking that powerful psychological principle and applying it to your morning coffee, or your walk to the grocery store, or even just the quiet act of listening to music without doing 5 other things.
Exactly.
What this means for us then, at its core, is that maybe happiness isn't some grand destination we have to reach.
Right.
But maybe it's more like a series of mindful, chosen experiences we can create moment by moment every day.
Precisely. It gives us a tangible, science-backed tool to elevate our everyday experience without waiting for extraordinary events to happen or feeling overwhelmed by external pressures. It means we have an accessible, potent pathway to greater well-being right within our daily routines.
But of course, there's always a but, isn't there?
There often is.
Like with anything that gains widespread popularity, especially something born on social media, there's a critical flip side. While initially beneficial and genuinely transformative for many, romanticizing your life can, unfortunately, very easily morph into just another form of social media performance.
Yes, the performance trap.
What starts as an authentic internal desire for well-being and presence can quickly become this external pressure to appear a certain way, to portray a perfect curated life for an audience. And that's where things can get, well, complicated.
And this is precisely where the practice can begin to feel inauthentic, even fake, and ultimately completely counterproductive. It shifts from being a tool for your personal joy and internal peace to becoming a performative act. We start to see examples of this pressure everywhere, sometimes subtly, sometimes quite overtly.
Like what?
Well, think about it. Feeling compelled to journal, not for genuine introspection or emotional release, but needing the perfect pens and artistic layouts purely for a photo opportunity later.
Right, documenting the journaling instead of just journaling.
Exactly. Or perhaps needing to drink your matcha latte only in that golden hour sunlight for the ideal shot, rather than just enjoying its warmth and taste whenever you actually feel like having it.
Guilty as charged sometimes.
We've all been there. Even something as simple as breakfast can become a source of anxiety, feeling like you have to make every single one photogenic before you can actually enjoy it or even take a bite.
Yeah, the avocado toast pressure.
The avocado toast pressure? Exactly. When this happens, the focus unequivocally shifts from genuine internal joy and well-being to external aesthetic pressure. And if you zoom out, connect this to the bigger picture, it suddenly becomes yet another impossible standard to meet online.
Another way to feel like you're not doing enough.
Precisely. A new layer of curated perfection that can be utterly exhausting and anxiety-inducing rather than uplifting. It turns a potential source of solace into a source of stress.
It's almost ironic, isn't it? A practice that's meant to bring peace and comfort, to foster a sense of presence and joy, can actively create feelings of inadequacy and guilt instead. What is it specifically about social media that turns an internal act like this into such a burdensome external performance?
You've hit on a truly crucial point there. Social media platforms are, well, by their very design, built on visual validation and comparison.
The likes, the comments.
Exactly. The algorithms favor highly polished, aesthetically pleasing content. So when you post a romanticized moment, the likes, the comments, the shares, they act as a powerful form of external reinforcement.
Feels good in the moment.
It does initially, but it subtly trains your brain to seek that external validation rather than the internal joy the act itself might provide. You start to perform for the algorithm, for your followers, for the perceived gaze of others, rather than simply for yourself.
Performing instead of experiencing.
Yes, and this constant comparison to idealized versions of life, which are often painstakingly edited and filtered, let's be honest, creates this insidious pressure. You see other people's perfect-looking moments and then feel compelled to match or exceed them, leading to this cycle of endless striving for an unachievable perfection.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It is. It's a stark reminder that the digital world can twist even the most benign self-improvement tools into sources of comparison and self-judgment.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because there's a tangible guilt factor that emerges from all this.
Guilt?
A fact check from our sources highlights a 2023 survey by Verywell Mind, and it uncovered a truly significant finding. A staggering 56% of Gen Z participants reported feeling guilty.
Guilty about self-care.
Guilty when their self-care routines or their attempts to romanticize their life simply didn't look good enough for social media.
Wow. 56%, that's huge.
It's huge. Think about that for a moment. Over half of a generation engaging in a practice intended to bring peace and comfort, to foster presence and joy, are actively creating feelings of inadequacy and guilt for themselves because their reality doesn't match the curated ideal they see online.
That's deeply concerning.
It really is, and it raises an incredibly important question for you, for everyone listening. How can you possibly harness the genuine, proven benefits of this practice without succumbing to this pervasive pressure to perform and curate your life for an audience? How do we break free from the invisible shackles of the feed?
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we get the good stuff without the guilt?
So here's the core secret, I believe, to reclaiming healthy, authentic romanticization. It's not about what it looks like. It's profoundly about how it feels.
Feel overlook.
Feel overlook. Exactly. This is a truly crucial distinction, the linchpin that separates genuine well-being from performative aesthetics. When the primary motivator is an internal feeling, a sense of peace, contentment, joy, curiosity, or simply presence, the practice flourishes. It works.
Right.
When it shifts to external validation, to store reviews or likes, it withers. It becomes just another source of stress. The feeling is the goal. The aesthetic is merely a potential byproduct if it happens at all. It might look nice, it might not, doesn't matter.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Can you give some examples?
Absolutely. To really illustrate this, let's look at some direct contrasting examples from our source material. Imagine lighting a candle.
Yeah.
The aesthetic pressure might tell you to position it just right for a photo, to capture the perfect flicker and shadow, maybe make sure the background is perfectly styled, decluttered.
Setting the scene.
Setting the scene. But the authentic way to romanticize that moment is to light the candle not for a picture, but purely for the calming, comforting smell it releases. Just allowing that aroma to fill your space and your senses, maybe watching the gentle flame dance purely for your own quiet contemplation, no phone involved.
Just experiencing the candle.
Just experiencing it, or consider going for a walk. The social media version might be about finding the most picturesque spot, wearing the perfect athleisure wear, snapping a photo of your cool sneakers, or documenting your route on an app.
Proof you went for a walk.
Exactly, proof. But the authentic act is to go on that walk specifically and solely to clear your head or to connect with nature, to feel the movement of your body, to notice the sounds and smells around you with absolutely zero thought of posting about it.
Just being on the walk.
Just being on the walk. And then there's journaling. The pressure often dictates perfect calligraphy, pristine pages, maybe beautifully drawn borders, and these profound, perfectly phrased insights you're supposed to have.
Yeah, the bullet journal aesthetic.
Right. But truly, the healthy, authentic way to journal is often in a messy, ugly, honest way. Spilling out your raw thoughts and feelings, maybe even stuff you don't want to admit, abandoning all pressure for perfect handwriting or elaborate layouts. It's about raw expression, introspection, mental decluttering, not artistic presentation. It's for your eyes only.
That feels much more freeing.
It is.
You've really hit on something vital there.
Yeah.
Romanticizing your life truly works only when you are doing it for yourself, right? When it's an internal experience aimed at your own well-being, your own sense of peace, it completely loses its power and its original purpose. The moment it becomes about story views, about getting likes, or about that external validation from others,
It really does.
it transforms from a deeply personal practice into a public performance, and that's where the benefits just evaporate.
They erode completely.
Okay, let's unpack this then. How do we pivot? How do we consciously shift from that external performance mindset back to the genuine internal experience, especially when we're so, conditioned by social media feeds?
Yeah, that conditioning is strong. It's really about a conscious and consistent shift in intention, day by day, moment by moment.
Okay.
It means recognizing and reminding yourself that the most profound and lasting benefits come from the quiet, unseen moments that only you experience, rather than the ones designed for public consumption.
Private moments.
The private moments.
Hmm.
One key strategy is to deliberately not document every single potentially romanticized moment. If you light that candle for comfort, just enjoy it. Put the phone away. Don't immediately reach for it.
Resist the urge.
Resist the urge.
Yeah.
If you take a mindful walk, focus on your breath and surroundings, not on framing the perfect shot. Another powerful approach is to reflect on the feeling immediately after an activity. Ask yourself, did lighting that candle actually make me feel calmer? Did my walk truly clear my head?
Checking in with yourself.
Exactly. By reinforcing the internal benefit, you retrain your brain to associate the activity with internal reward, not external validation. Over time, this conscious redirection builds a habit of authentic savoring. It's like a daily, gentle rebellion against the performative culture.
I like that, a gentle rebellion. That's a great point about not documenting everything. It sort of gives you permission to just be in the moment.
It does.
So let's get really practical now. How can you, our listener, start to integrate this authentic romanticizing into your own life, moving it beyond the screen and into your actual daily reality?
Our sources provide some wonderful, actionable examples that are simple, yet potentially transformative, really focusing on these micro moments.
Yeah, the small stuff.
Imagine starting your day by playing some calming or maybe inspiring music while you're just doing mundane things like brushing your teeth or getting dressed.
Adding a soundtrack.
Yeah. It's a small task that suddenly becomes a moment of mindful transition, a gentle awakening. Or perhaps instead of immediately grabbing your phone with your morning coffee or tea, the default move for so many of us.
Right. Try sitting in silence with it, deliberately, without any digital distraction. Allow yourself to truly taste it, feel the warmth of the rug in your hands, and just be present in that quiet moment, even if it's just for 2 minutes. I know for myself, if I don't check my phone first thing, my entire day feels more intentional.
That space makes a huge difference.
It really does. And think about those everyday errands, the ones we usually rush through. How about treating grocery shopping not as a chore you have to endure, but maybe like a cute date with yourself?
Okay, explain that one.
Well, maybe you put on your favorite playlist to your headphones, you explore new aisles you've never noticed before, discover interesting ingredients you might want to try, or simply enjoy the quiet act of choosing nourishing food for yourself, reframing it.
Seeing it as exploration rather than a task. I like that.
Yeah. Or if you have just a few minutes and a good book nearby, why not grab a poem or short story and read it under a tree in a park? truly connecting with the natural world around you, even if it's just for 5 minutes between other things.
A little dose of nature and literature.
And then there's my personal favorite, maybe, one that requires zero props or planning. Just dancing in your room
Yeah.
at 11 p.m. because the mood strikes you.
Love it.
No one watching, no choreography needed, just pure, unadulterated joy and movement. A complete release. These aren't grand gestures, right?
Yeah.
They're tiny, accessible ways to infuse intention and maybe a little beauty into the very fabric of your day, shifting your mindset.
And what's fascinating here, building on what you said, is the profound impact of these seemingly small actions. While they appear simple, maybe even trivial to some,
Right.
they serve a critical purpose. They ground you in the now. They pull you into the present moment.
Oh, okay.
In our modern world, we're constantly being pulled into the past with regrets or ruminations. We're catapulted into the future with anxieties and endless to-do lists. These micro moments of intentionality, of savoring, act as powerful anchors.
Pulling you back to right here, right now.
Exactly. Pulling us firmly into the present moment. And this presence, this deep connection to the current moment, is presented in a lot of the psychology around this as the very key to long-term happiness and well-being. Much more so than a relentless pursuit of grand, elusive events that may or may not ever materialize.
So find the richness now, not later.
Find the richness now. It's a recognition that life's true richness isn't found only in a highlight reel, but often in the quiet, conscious appreciation of the ordinary, everyday stuff.
And the power of these micro moments lies in their cumulative effect, right? It's not just one mindful cup of tea.
Absolutely not. It's the cumulative effect. Each intentional breath, each mindful sip of tea, each moment you notice the sunlight, each uninhibited little dance in the kitchen, they build on each other. They build a foundation of sustained contentment over time. These small acts of savoring increase our emotional resilience. They can sharpen our focus, and they help reduce those feelings of being constantly overwhelmed. They essentially teach our brains to find fulfillment in the actual fabric of everyday life, right here, rather than constantly chasing fleeting, extraordinary splashes of excitement that are, by nature, rare.
So it builds inner stability.
It allows you to build a reservoir of inner peace, yeah. Making you less susceptible, perhaps, to the external chaos and those comparison traps that often dominate our modern experience. It's about cultivating a deep sense of self-worth that isn't dependent on external validation or circumstance.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, let's get to the core conclusion, the takeaway distilled from our sources. Does romanticizing your life actually make you happier?
The big question.
The big question. And the answer, pretty unequivocally from what we've looked at, is yes.
Yeah.
But, and this is a crucial but, maybe the most important part, it only does so if it adheres to 3 simple yet profound principles.
Okay, what are they?
First, it has to be slow. It's not about rushing through a checklist of aesthetic tasks to post online. It's about truly savoring each moment, allowing it to unfold at its own pace, taking your time.
Slowing down. Got it.
Second, it needs to be simple. There's no need for elaborate setups, expensive props, or waiting for the perfect environment. The beauty is found in the everyday, the accessible, the inherent simplicity of the moment itself.
Less is more.
Less is more. And third, most importantly, it has to be for you.
For you.
For you. It's about your internal experience, your peace, your joy, your sense of well-being, not about what anyone else sees, thinks, or validates online or offline.
That internal focus is key.
Absolutely.
And expanding on that point, the overarching message here is incredibly potent, I think. The goal is presence, not perfection.
Presence, not perfection. I like that.
Your life doesn't need to look like a movie. It doesn't need to be a perfectly curated reel for social media or an endlessly polished Instagram story. In fact, striving for that external perfection often pulls you away from the very presence that brings genuine happiness and contentment.
Because you're too busy staging it.
You're too busy staging it or worrying about how it looks. Instead, your life just needs to be authentically yours. And this philosophy, it extends far beyond just romanticizing life, doesn't it? It touches on how we find genuine contentment and well-being in this incredibly fast-paced, comparison-driven world we live in.
Yeah, it feels bigger than just nice tea.
It's much bigger. It's an invitation, really, to shift from living for the external gaze, for the likes, for the approval, to living fully within your own experience, savoring the richness of your unique journey, completely unedited and unfiltered. And maybe this raises an important question for you, the listener, to ponder. In a world that's constantly demanding external validation, how often do you truly allow yourself to just be?
That's a powerful question. And perhaps, following that thought, the most beautiful and truly aesthetic thing you can do today is to simply allow yourself to be in a moment, utterly and completely, with no audience, no filter, and absolutely no need for it to look any particular way at all.
Just be.
Just be. So what small, ordinary moment will you reclaim and truly make yours today?